Can everybody hear it?
No, not your video.
Oh, you know what? I think I have to.
Advisors, I'm so thankful you're joining us study this month. You know, every financial advisor wants a success.
How about that now? Can you hear
You're a
it?
Christian financial advisor.
Yeah, we don't
Success means
see
something
anything.
different. It's not just about helping people build bigger barns. It's about growing your practice while also making a bigger kingdom impact. But let's be honest, that isn't always easy. Well, here at Kingdom Advisors, this study group is just one of the ways we can equip you with the biblical knowledge and like-minded relationships you need for greater kingdom impact. This month, we're joined by our friend Michael Hyatt to talk about how you can win at work and succeed at life. As Christians, we know we were created in the image of God, the Creator, and as image and meaningful work. But how do you do that while keeping your work-life balance in check? Well, Michael Hyatt has some practical ideas to offer on that topic today.
Thanks, Rob. In the year 2000, I achieved a lifelong career dream. I became the publisher of one of Thomas Nelson Publishers' 14 book publishing divisions. Now, what I didn't know at the time was that this division was the worst performing division in Thomas Nelson's portfolio of book publishing companies. This one was dead last in revenue growth, dead last in profitability, dead last in employee morale, and about every metric you could think of. So I was given the responsibility of turning this division around. And what I didn't realize at the time, but quickly figured out, I really couldn't screw it up. I could only make things better. I mean, we were already dead last, right? So the CEO asked me, he said, how long do you think it's going to take you to turn this division around? And honestly, I didn't have a clue. But I kind of pulled the number out of the air and I said, it's going to take 3 years. And I acted like I had a plan. And he said, well, that's kind of what I was thinking. So have at it. So the first thing I did was I went off on a private retreat and I thought about what I wanted to see happen to this division over the course of the next 3 years. Then I came back, shared it with the team. They got excited about it. They rolled up their sleeves and we went to work. And I mean, we were working hard, sometimes 60, 70, 80 hours a week, working at night, working on the weekends, traveling constantly. But in 18 months, we turned that division around. We went from 14 to number 1 in all those same metrics. We were the fastest growing division in the company. We were the most profitable division in the company. And as you can imagine, the morale was through the roof because we all got the biggest bonus checks that we'd ever received. In fact, I got the biggest bonus check I'd ever received in my career. It was more than my annual salary. So I just knew that my wife, Gail, was going to be over the moon with this accomplishment. I was excited. I was almost giddy. So I drove home. I bounced through the front door. I found Gail back somewhere in the house, and I unfurled the check, and I said, look at this check. We went from 14 to number 1. And I expected her to be super excited about it. She was a little nonplussed, and I didn't quite know why. And then she said to me these words. She said, honey, we need to talk. And I'm thinking to myself, uh-oh. So she led me into the den. We sat down, and she began to tear up. And I thought, wow. And she said, you know, I love you. And I'm so grateful for all that you do for our family. But I got to be honest with you. You're never home. And I felt defensive. I wanted to explain why. But in my heart of hearts, I knew she was right. And then she said, your 5 daughters need you now more than ever. Most of them were teenagers at that point, and they did need me. And I had to acknowledge that was true too. And then she began to cry. And she said, if I'm honest, I feel like a single mom. Well, that wasn't what I was going for. That gripped me by the heart. And one of the things that I realized is that I was facing what I would call the impossible choice. I could either win at work or I could succeed at life, but I couldn't do both. I had to choose one. Maybe you felt like that too. A lot of our clients do, our coaching clients. They feel like it's an either or proposition. Now, when faced with that choice, most people do one of two things. Number one, they cave to what I call the hustle fallacy. They think, if I just really work hard, if I really apply myself, if I, burn the midnight oil, if I get up early, if I work hard, then eventually I'll get to the place where I can make time for the other priorities in life. Problem is, that point rarely comes. That becomes a lifestyle and people continue to do it for the rest of their career. The other alternative is people apply what I would call the ambition break. They say, well, it's a simple choice. I can either win at work or succeed at life, and I'd much rather give attention to the things that I know are important, like my health and my family. So I'm going to throttle my ambition. I'm going to apply the brakes a little bit, and I'm going to settle. The problem is that for high achievers, people like us that want to make a dent in the universe, we want to have a transformative impact on our clients or our customers, that's not very acceptable. Because we realize that there's all this wasted potential and we don't get the satisfaction of building something we can be proud of. Yeah, we achieve our most important priorities, but there's other priorities that don't get our attention. Well, I'm here to tell you that it's not an either or proposition. And one of the things I began doing after I had that conversation with Gail and Didin is I realized something had to change. And I thought, what if there was a third way? Because I didn't like either of those two choices. I said, what if there's a way where I could win at work and succeed at life? And I spent really the last 20 years trying to figure that out. And I call it the double win. And here at Full Focus, we're committing to helping our coaches, our clients achieve that double win, where they're winning at work and succeeding at life. They're killing it in their profession. But at the same time, they've got great marriages, they're in outstanding health, and they're achieving their most important priorities. But here's the thing. If we're going to achieve that double win, and I would really encourage you, don't settle for less. If we're going to achieve that double win, there are 5 principles that will help us get there. Some of these are counterintuitive, but we got to think different if we're going to get different results. We can't just continue to succumb to the hustle fallacy or the ambition break. We have to be in that space where we're open to a third possibility. So in our brief time together, I want to share with you the 5 principles of the double win. Principle number 1, work is only one of many ways to orient your life. It truly is. Work is only one of many ways to orient your life. So back when I was trying to work to turn this division around, I basically thought of all of life as work, and everything else was designed to sort of augment work, enhance work, or make me better at work. But then I discovered there were a lot of other things too, like my health. And during that time I was turning that division around, I ended up in the emergency room 3 different times thinking I was having a heart attack. Thankfully, it wasn't a heart attack. And I finally went to a cardiologist and he said, what is going on in your life? And I shared with him my work schedule, what I was trying to do. And he said to me, something's got to change or you might end up in the ER really having a heart attack. So I realized that there was another dimension to life called my health. There was another dimension to my life, my spiritual life. Another dimension was my family, my wife, my 5 daughters. There were hobbies and friends and so much more. But work is only one of many ways to orient your life. It's a slice of the pie, to be sure. And it's an important part of the pie. But you will never be satisfied if you only give attention to work and ignore the other domains of your life. And the truth is that all of life is interconnected. The quality of your marriage and your most important relationships will affect your work. And your stress level at work and everything else you experience at work will affect your most important relationships. It'll affect your health. If you go through a health crisis, that's going to have an impact also on the rest of your life. So work is only one of many ways to orient your life. Now that brings us to principle number 2. And this is where I started getting the real help I needed. Constraints foster productivity, creativity, and freedom. So what do I mean by that? You gotta have boundaries around work. Otherwise, if you're a highly productive person, if you love to achieve, if you've got big ambition, the problem is work will bleed into everything else. So one of the first things I did after I decided that I was after this double win, right after this conversation that I had with Gail in the den, I contacted my friend John Maxwell and I said, John, I need help. I am not in balance. I'm completely out of balance. And I really don't want to sacrifice my family and my health on the altar of the ambition I have for work. So what do? He said, buddy, you need an executive coach. You need somebody that can kind of coach you through this. And I said, terrific, who? And so he recommended to somebody. And in my first conversation with this coach, here's what he said. He said, you've got to have boundaries. You need constraints. The problem is not that you have too little time. You have too much time dedicated to work. And here's how my life looked in those days. Middle of the afternoon, I wasn't even close to being done with my to-do list. But I would say, hey, no problem. I'll go home. I'll grab a quick bit of dinner with the family. Then I'll crack open my laptop. I'll get back to work and I'll finish up. Same thing on the weekends. I thought, well, I didn't finish my work on Friday. No problem. I'll go to the office on Saturday morning. I'll work. I'll catch up. Or I'll do it Sunday evening. Same thing on vacations. I was that guy that would get up before the rest of the family got up so that I could, jam through some email and get some work done before I finally had to relent to the family and spend time with them. I mean, I'm not proud of it, but that's how it was. He said, you need constraints. You need some boundaries. So he asked me, he said, when are you willing to stop work? And I'm talking about every day, a hard boundary when you're going to turn it off, you're going to close your laptop and you're not going to open until the next day. So I thought about it and I kind of gulped and I said, 6 p.m. He said, is that a commitment you can live with? And I said, yes. He said, okay, great. He said, what about the weekends? Again, I took a deep breath and I said, I'm willing to not work on the weekends. He said, okay, great. He said, what about vacations? I know you don't take many, but on the vacations you do, what's going to be your posture? And I said, I won't work on vacations. And he said, great. Then there was this kicker. He said, then I'm sure you won't mind if I check in with Gail periodically to see how you're doing. That was the kind of ultimate accountability that I needed. But here's what changed. When I had hard boundaries, I got more productive, more focused, and more creative. Think of it as the Friday before you go on vacation. You know how that is, right? So you're uber productive. Why? Because your plane's flying out the next day. You've got to get it done before you leave. So you're unbelievably productive that day before you go on vacation. But what if that could be every day? And that's what happened to me. So instead of getting involved in side conversations in the middle of the afternoon or wasting my time scrolling through social media or whatever, I realized at that point that I only had a few hours left till 6 p.m. and I had to get focused, really prioritized, and be productive. And that has worked unbelievably for me. So I was able to achieve more by doing less. In the middle of the pandemic, or I should say at the beginning of the pandemic, our company decided that we were going to go to a 6-hour workday because we had lots of young families that were trying to juggle kids that weren't at school. Remember the lockdowns, all of that? You know what happened? We did it as a consideration for our employees, thinking that it wouldn't be permanent, that it was a temporary thing. We made it permanent. You know why? Because they were more productive. They prioritized better. They achieved the most important things. They focused on the high leverage tasks and not all the other tasks. And our company grew like crazy. So converting to a 6-hour workday in 2020 resulted in the biggest year we've ever had. So you can achieve more by doing less, but you've got to establish constraints. So let me just ask you, what time are you willing to quit every day so that you can go home and attend to the other things that are important as well? Because remember, again, principle number 1, work is only one way of orienting your life. But principle number 2, constraints foster productivity, creativity, and freedom. You don't have to wait till retirement to get that freedom. You can get it now. and be more productive at work. Okay, principle number 3. Work-life balance is truly possible. Now, I know people like to rag on this and say, oh, it's a myth, and there's been articles written on this, entire books written on this topic. But I'm here to tell you it is possible. I'm living it. My employees are living it. Our clients are living it. Work-life balance is truly possible, but you got to be careful how you define it. Here's kind of the straw man that gets set up. They say, well, work-life balance isn't possible. You can't give the same amount of time to your health or your family or your kids that you give to work. Just not possible. They're right. It's not possible. And it's not necessary. Here's how I define work-life balance. It's you giving the appropriate amount of attention to the various categories or domains of your life. So, for example, I worked out hard this morning, did some strength training, did a little bit of cardio, but I worked out for 45 minutes. At work today, I'm working for 6 hours. I'll spend a couple hours with Gail later tonight, and those are all the appropriate amount of time that I should invest in each of those. To be in balance, I don't need a 6-hour workout because I work for 6 hours, or I don't need to spend 6 hours a day with Gail because I work 6 hours. No, work-life balance is truly possible if you define it as giving the appropriate amount of time to each of life's domains. And that takes planning. It takes some design. So 2 approaches to getting through life. One is to kind of drift through it, be reactive, give to whoever asked the time that they asked for, and let other people control your agenda. The reverse of that is not to live by the drift, because here's reality. Nobody ever drifted to a destination they would have chosen, right? People drift to bad destinations, health crises, relationship crises, even business crises. The opposite of that is to design a life that is truly balanced. One of the best ways to do that is to create your ideal week. In other words, if you had 100% control of your time, where would you invest it? How much time would you spend at work? Be proactive. Design it on the front end. How much time would you spend giving attention to your health or your most important relationships? Is there time for hobbies? Yeah, those should be there too. Which leads me to principle number 4. There's incredible power in non-achievement. That is really hard for me to say. I never would have thought that would have even come out of my mouth, but I've written about it. There's incredible power in non-achievement. Now, the reason that's so incredible and so surprising for me to say it is my top strength on Strength Finders is achievement. I'm an achiever. When it comes to the Enneagram, I'm an Enneagram 3. I'm task-oriented. But what I've learned as I've gone through life, and I'm 66 years old today, what I've learned in all these decades is there's incredible power in non-achievement. You know, achieving things are important. I mean, I've been a New York Times best-selling author. I've run a big public company. Our company's won the Inc. award for the 5,000 fastest growing companies in America, private companies. You know, all these things. What does that matter? Those have been kind of fleeting satisfactions. The things that are the most satisfying in life are me spending time with my wife or with my daughters. I have great relationships with each of my 5 daughters, with my 3 sons-in-law, with my now almost 10 grandchildren. We got one in the oven. Or to spend time with 1 or 2 or even all of my son-in-laws fishing. Incredible power in that. But do we esteem those non-achievement activities? This is a question of values. And we've got to learn to value those things that we can't measure. Now, you know anything about me, I'm all about measurement. I'm all about metrics. I track various metrics. I have key operating metrics or key indices that I follow and pay attention to. But it's the things that can't be measured that are the things that are most important, like the quality of my relationship with God, my fellowship with Him, my relationship with my wife, spending time on a hobby like playing a guitar or the Native American flute, both of which I do. Those are non-achievement, but they have incredible power. First of all, they have incredible power just to relax me, to make life or give life that rich texture that makes it all worth living. Life is more than the sum of your achievements. Another thing that's valuable about non-achievement is I find that I'm often the most creative when I'm not working, right? Sometimes I have that breakthrough idea when I'm sitting out on my fishing kayak, fishing for bass, or in a river fishing for trout, or playing my guitar, or taking a walk with Gail, or having a wonderful dinner with friends. That non-achievement time can actually result in achievements later. But it gives life the richness and the texture we need to be satisfied. Okay, that leaves me with principle number 5. Rest is the foundation of meaningful, productive work. Rest is the foundation of meaningful, productive work. Now, here's the interesting thing. Rest is one of those things that I don't think is the reward for hard work, but it's basically the foundation of hard work. Have you ever noticed that when you get a good night's sleep, and by the way, I track mine religiously. I have this Aura ring on my finger, which measures everything related to my sleep, including my variable heart rate, including my REM sleep, my deep sleep, all of those kind of things are there. So sleep is the foundation. But when I have a great night's sleep, guess what? I'm more focused. I'm more productive. I'm more creative. Dan Sullivan likes to say it this way. He said, have you ever noticed that the more tired you get, the dumber everybody else seems? It's true, isn't it? Well, maybe it's not them. Maybe it's you. So I know that if I'm going to really accomplish something important, or if I've got some big assignment that's due, or some creative work that needs to be done, I know that the most important thing that I can do is get a good night's rest. So let me ask you a question. Are you prioritizing rest? Are you trying to get 8 hours of sleep a night? There's been a lot of experiments done in my book, Win at Work and Succeed at Life, which I wrote with my oldest daughter, Megan, who's the CEO of our company. We talk about rest in some detail. Do you know that there was a study that we quoted in the book that if you average 6 hours sleep a night for 2 weeks, that basically you will have the cognitive ability of somebody who's legally drunk? Who wants that? To think that you're walking around trying to run a business, trying to relate to other people, trying to make all the decisions you have to make to have a successful business in life, and you're essentially legally drunk? That's not going to work out too well. So you got to prioritize rest. Last year, I took 162 days off. And yet my business grew over 16%, most profitable year we've ever had. So this is important. Rest is the foundation. You've got to prioritize it. And I would just encourage you, if you're skeptical, if you're thinking to yourself, no, I can get by on 4 hours sleep a night. I don't need 8 hours of sleep a night. First of all, the science is totally against you. But just try as an experiment. See if what happens to you if you prioritize rest and get 7 or 8 hours sleep a night for a week. Check in with yourself. How do you feel? How productive are you at work? How creative have you been? All that's critically important. So, 5 principles of the double win. I hope that you won't settle for anything less than that. I'll tell you what, my life could have ended up totally different if I hadn't stumbled upon this third way. If I had given into the hustle fallacy, I might have ended up like a lot of my friends, divorced, in poor health, because I'd given too much attention to one domain of my life. Or I might have put the brakes on my ambition and had a great personal life, but not really accomplished anything significant. And I'm going to tell you, one of the things that I love is making the contribution that I make to our clients and the business that we have. So just in closing, I want to encourage you, don't settle for the single win. Go for the double win. It's absolutely possible. You can do it. And what would it make possible for your life? What would your life look like in 5 years or 10 years if you pursued the double win? What would happen to your health, to the quality of your relationships, and to your business? Yes, you can have them both. Don't settle. Thanks.
All right. Oh, excuse me. All right. I'm still recording, so we can give Tom some of our commentary. But any thoughts? Oh, Lori, you were muted. Oh,
I can hear you. I can hear you.
okay. Sorry, I was muted.
Okay. I was just saying I really struggle with that one. I've always had the philosophy of a work-life blend. And I worked at night when I get home. I spend time, but then I sit down at my computer and I work, I catch up on emails, and it's kind of relaxing for me. When I'm on vacation, I check my emails. I don't do Zoom meetings or anything like that. But I just feel like it helps me to not be overwhelmed when I come back. I just kind of keep up on that part of it. So and then if I need to take time off during the day and go get a hair appointment or a dentist appointment or something, I do that. So I've always approached it from that work-life blend approach. He did say some things that make me stop and think, though. And I think about how effective I am on the day before I go on vacation. And I get so much done. It's like, wow, why can't I do this every single day? And then this year, because I didn't have any vacations planned, I scheduled a day a week off. Now, when I'm home, I'm checking emails, I'm doing some projects around the house, it's more relaxed. I'm not getting dressed for the office. And I've really been enjoying that. So I'm listening to this message saying, don't just say this is how I've always done it and it works, but listen to it and think about things differently, as he said. So, but I struggle. This is a big one for me.
I think I kind of the same way. The nice part about working from home is, again, you don't have to get as dressed up. But the harder part is, I'll just go upstairs and do a few things, and then it might be an hour later, or things like that. And just having the reminders like this, or we were just at a conference in July where they talked about how depending upon if you're a morning person or an evening person, there's periods in your day where you're actually 4 to 5 times more productive. And so it's kind of going along with what Michael talked about and what Lori just mentioned about how you get so much more done the day before you're on vacation. And they said, to plan things that require, that concentration and everything, just start scheduling important meetings in those super productive times. So I think this is something that, we need reminders like this. We need to kind of reorient it, because it's so easy to get out of balance. And quite frankly, I think it also helps to have an accountability partner, have someone that in so many respects that can help keep you oriented.
I too, that one line he said about how productive you are before vacation, that really, of course, couldn't get out of my head either. I was thinking about it too when he was talking about planning your ideal week. And, I'm thinking about my marriage with my wife, like what would it look like if I only had 1 hour a day with my wife? Like, what would I do? I mean, we wouldn't watch TV together. We would be asking each other questions or playing a game or really interacting. And like, how do I schedule those times in with my wife? So it's not just, a date night once every 2 weeks or something, but like, if we, every day of the week, said, let's take the next hour or whatever, maybe it doesn't need to be scheduled like that. I don't think my wife would like it if I said, here's our hour that we're going to do this, but just to be a little more intentional in that relationship, I think that could go a long way.
When I listened to what Michael had to say and what you said, Lori, I don't think that you scheduling your day around having some time being productive from home is off track from what he said. As long as you are, again, being intentional about it and having that balance with your other life priorities. If you choose to do your emails at night because it makes your next morning earlier, as long as it's not taking away from your marriage, your health, your spiritual relationship, that's what works for you.
Right.
You know, from my perspective, the biggest challenge here is I think that I'm walking around with a totally drunk perspective because I haven't slept for years. So it's real nice to say, yeah, get 8 hours of sleep, but you can't just say it. I don't know how to do it anymore.
Mhm.
So that to me was the biggest part of his conversation, that you need the rest, which I recognize I need the rest. I just don't know how to get it.
Yeah, and I do know, when there are those times that for some, unforeseen reason, I don't sleep. My mom was in the emergency room about a month ago, and I was there with her all night long and didn't sleep. And by the next day, I could barely drive home. I did feel drunk. It was, it's so there's some extreme there, but then it's not just if you get 7 hours, you're fine. It's that buildup that definitely does have an impact.
Diane, are there other ways that you do get rest other than sleep?
I would say no. I mean, I at the end of the day, when I go home, I am just totally beat. I sit on the couch, put my feet up, either watch some brainless television or read a brainless book because there's just nothing left, no gas left in the tank. And then I try to go to bed and sleep for a couple hours and get little snippets for a couple more hours. And that's really, so I actually have been praying about it a lot and just saying, God, I don't know how to fix it, so you're going to have to do it.
Mhm.
Have you tried, a different type of bed?
We've done a new mattress, we've done new sheets, new comforter, new pillows. I have tried, I used to take Advil PM, but then after, some health coaching, I realized how bad that is for my body and inflammation that can lead to other health concerns. So right now I'm trying, I'm just sort of at a loss on what to do, if there's a supplement I should take or I shouldn't take. So right now I'm just floundering.
Yeah, I know I've taken melatonin, we try to do more natural stuff. And sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't. We got a Sleep Number bed and we got an adjustable base, and at times, there were times we slept really great, and then now it doesn't seem to work too good. And so now we've actually just lifted it. They're called bed risers, where you just lift up, put them under the legs of your bed, and it like tilts the bed up, and that actually is working right now. So those are just some suggestions that may help.
And I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, because obviously that is hard.
Yeah, I went through about where I had trouble sleeping for about a year, and I tried all these different things, and it feels like when I was trying them, like everything I tried, I was like waiting for a result, and then it just gets worse and worse and worse. And, for me, it really came down to like, I have no control over whether my body sleeps or not. Like God is in control of this, just like he is about with everything else in my life. And just like relinquishing that idea of I'm going to do something to make this happen, like we do with all of these other things in our lives. Sleep is just one of those things that's you have no control over. It just happens.
And I appreciate that, because that's sort of where I've gotten to. It's like I've tried numerous different things and I've just sort of said, God, it's up to you.
Well, I feel for you. I empathize with you. I've felt that pain for sure.
Yeah, well, thank you.
I found it was interesting in the video. It says that if you're working too much, it's because you have too much time. And I remember in my career that it was like, oh, I have no time. And that's why I'm working till 9, 10 o'clock at night, and I'm up by 4:30 the next morning. And once I started to really realize that I needed to prioritize my life, and I put those boundaries down, that really, it was amazing how much it really changed. So many years ago, I decided every morning from a certain period of time, I'm going to read the Bible. I don't care what it is. I'll skip breakfast if I have to, but I am going to read that Bible. And then have not done a good job of this. I'm working on it now, but exercise, that also helped me with the sleep too, because the anxiety was more of things in my brain constantly going and trying to just stay on top of things. And it wasn't important stuff, you know, just all those little things like little foxes in the head just bouncing around. And so once I was able to, especially the exercise helped to kind of clear that. And then I was able to sleep a lot better. Now I've made it into an art form, but at least when, not because I'm retired now, but when I was working, I did have to work at that. It took a long time before I finally got into that routine.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. Well, Diane, I'm going to pray for you to find a way to get sleep. We're so grateful that you got through your treatments and things. And it's funny, Marna and I went for a walk today, and we were listening to VCY radio, and one of the pastors was talking about Paul, and when Paul prayed to get that thorn out of his side, and God didn't answer his prayer,
Right.
but he said, "My grace is sufficient." And I thought, boy, I needed to hear that. And so keep relying on him, which I know you're doing.
Thank you. I really liked the other thing he said about when you're drifting and being reactive versus having a designed life. I think I have to ponder a little bit better design. It's like I start up on that all the time, and then I get caught up in the currents and drift away again. So I think I need to really focus on the deliberate nature of my schedule and time so that I can be more efficient.
Yeah, I think that's a good one, a good reminder for all of us that, again, it's just something that we got to keep working on. And
I thought it was neat when he said that rest is the foundation for productivity rather than a reward. And boy, I always thought of it as a reward. It's like, yeah, I work so hard, I deserve to rest. But it's a catch-22 in a sense, because if you're working so hard during the day, you're exhausted, so you need the rest, but then you can't rest because your brain is just going. And I have no idea what the answer is to that, except that the thought of this, and that is kind of reversing it, and that is trying to be more mindful of being resting, if your body would allow you to do that, or your brain would allow you to do that, because then you'd be more efficient at work, which then might reduce some of the activity that goes on in your head, so you can rest better. So I just was an interesting thought to think about that one somewhere.
One thing, Michael Hyatt had a planner. It's called the Full Focus Planner, and I used it for a while, and I don't use it anymore because it was a paper version, and now I have an iPad version. But one of the things that he talks about is, he calls it the daily big three. What are the three most important goals that you have for the day? And and write those down. And the session that I went to in Denver, they talked about having that not only for your work, but for your personal life, and so, I didn't do it today because I kind of ran short on time, but right after this, I need to go back and say, okay, what else do I need to get, what are those top three? And they talked about the importance of writing them down, and because I hate writing because no one can read my writing, but there's something in your brain that when you write it down, it helps you remember it. So, I think that's a key part there. The most important things to do, and then there, all the other ones are kind of secondary. But what are the big three?
I usually do a brain dump. I used to do that because I'd have so many things in my head, and I'd always be worried about forgetting. And that's what was creating so much busyness in my head all the time. I would just write absolutely every single thing down into a book. And it was just basically dumping my brain, putting everything down on paper. That helped me because now I knew I would never forget because it was on paper. I think that whole action of going from mind to hand to paper was helping that transfer idea too. Then I took all of that information and then I would prioritize, go from there for whatever system you have. But that brain dump I would do every day. And I guess, I don't know if it was really any specific time of day. I think it was more of if I started feeling a little agitated, that's when I would just do a brain dump right away. But I'd always do it in a specific book, so I'd always have it. So.
And I'm going to have to check out. I have another meeting coming up, but it was so good to see all of you. I appreciate the prayers and I hope you have a great day. Thank you.
Yeah,
Okay,
thank you.
Diane. Thank you. Well, yeah, I'll be praying.
Okay, thanks.
Well, I'm going to stop